Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Transportation Committee meeting of the Los Angeles City Council for Tuesday, February 16th, 2021. A belated happy Valentine's Day to everybody. We are meeting in accordance with, we've got a few mics on, Mr. White. I think your mic is on. Thank you. We are meeting in accordance with gubernatorial emergency directions electronically. And we are meeting today by Google Meet, and we will be accepting public comment electronically today. Members of the public who would like to offer public comments on the items listed on the agenda should call 669-254-5252. Again, that's 669-254-5252. And use meeting ID number 161-750-5079. That's 161-750-5079. And then press pound, and press pound again when prompted for your participant ID. And then, if you have managed to follow along so far, once admitted into the meeting, press *9 to request to speak. Let us take the roll here. I'm Councilmember Mike Bonin, and I am joined by my colleague Paul Koretz. Is Mr. Buscaino here yet? Okay, well, I anticipate he'll be joining us shortly, but we have a quorum, so we will begin. We will start with general public comment and all other public comment for that matter. Mr. Bruins, do we have any public comment today?
We do. I have about 17 people in the queue so far.
Okay, well, let's go.
Okay. Let's see, 1 second. Okay, we will begin with the caller last 4 digits, 7637. You will have, please identify yourself and which items you would like to speak on.
Go ahead, caller.
Please unmute yourself. There we go. Please identify yourself and which items you'd like to speak on.
Hello, you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right. Thank you very much, the honorable council members. My name is Madison Michael. I am a Tax Worker Association leadership member, United Driver. What I am saying is the LA DOT has failed to submit a reliable proposal. If you accept DOT's proposal and adopt what is called the open market system, I bet you taxi service will be history. It will accelerate race to the bottom. What I am suggesting is extend the franchise for a year, include taxi drivers to have input in the new studies. When the new studies is adopted, number one, multiple years license for the companies as well as drivers, allow Taxicab to operate for as long as they pass DOT and AAA inspection, no term limit, allow taxis to pick up at LX terminal, and what I don't want to see is a price war between drivers and companies and urbanization of the city with flooding the taxi in the city, unnecessary punishment to the drivers is also not acceptable. The DOT has suggested now $700, $750 to $2,500 for the first punishment, and it could accelerate up to $6,500, which is not.
Thank you. Your time has expired. Thank you for your comment.
For the record,
Okay.
I'm joined by Councilmember Bruscaino. Welcome, Mr. Bruscaino.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. Thanks.
Okay, next up on comment is the last person with the telephone number last 4 digits 6352. Please identify yourself and which item you'd like to speak on. Please unmute yourself and say which item you'd like to speak on.
My name is Adel Issa. I am also in the taxi association. As well as I drive for United Independence. Today, what I would like for you to hear me is on 2 points. One is what the proposal is going to do. The proposal by DOT actually creates or overrides the taxi industry. Second, it creates price war. Third, price war, as you know, begins poverty-ridden drivers and owners of taxi cabs. Fourth, it is costly and it is assessment of violations, presumed violations. For example, $750 for engine light, $2,500 for butt headlight. These are assessments that are by far ridiculous. Not to, I mean, I'm mincing my words here. To start at $750 for engine light and to actually assess $2,500 for a butt headlight is something that is extraordinary, to say the least, and probably written by somebody else who wants for the taxi cab industry to wither away like hot molecules in a hot wire.
Thank you. Your time has expired. Thank you for your comment. Okay. Next up is the caller with the last 4 digits, 9204. Please identify yourself and which item you'd like to speak on.
Oh, hey, sorry,
Yes.
Can you hear me now?
I
Hi, my name is
yes.
Maggie Clark. I wanted to speak on item 6 and general public comment.
Okay, you have 2 minutes. You may begin.
Hey, so I just wanted to call in and sort of oppose, not sort of, strongly oppose Nuri Martinez's item in number 6, banning RVs from a set of streets in her district. We all know, I hope, you should, since we've called in to talk about this a million times, that gentrification is forcing hundreds of thousands, if not more, of working class, particularly Black and brown Angelenos, to the street. Many of them end up living in RVs. Preventing people from living in RVs on public streets is a form of social cleansing and vilifying the poor and criminalizes people for existing. I'll move on to general public comment. Ticketing people who obviously don't have any money because they're living in an RV makes no sense. There should be no fines associated with parking violations or towing for people who are living in poverty and are just trying to exist. Towing someone's home is also unacceptable. If we can't provide people with safe, secure places to live, which we can and we choose not to, then this government has no right to criminalize them for living where they can. If residents are concerned about trash or about additional people on the streets creating congestion, there are other solutions. We can provide trash pickup, bathrooms, and showers for people living in RVs, or we could house them. That's all I have to say. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, next up, caller with the number last 4 digits 7660. Please unmute yourself and identify yourself and which items you'd like to speak on.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
In 2017, this committee adopted a report requiring Taxicab Commission approval of any proposals, ordinance, and revisions to the LAMC. LA.dot has provided this committee incomplete and misleading information on this matter, including omission of the consultant's study, stakeholder comments, and other ambiguous representations. Contrary to the attorney's assertion, the submitted ordinance has not been sufficiently vetted and conflicts with the state law of 1069. Despite our repeated attempts to alert this city, significant legal questions remain unaddressed related to proposed new regulatory schemes. As of today, Taxicab Commission has failed to approve any regulations required to operate taxicabs. Our statement posted to Council file management system also breaks down the flaws in the proposed framework and numerous failures of the Taxicab Commission to adhere to basic procedural requirements. We also propose possible changes which can be quickly implemented, using current regulations and existing technology to improve customer service and the taxicab industry.
We have posted the statements to the file system, and we hope that he will take notice of the support letters that we have also posted. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Next up, caller last four digits 8074. 8074. Please identify yourself and which items you'd like to speak on.
Oh, hi. My name is Naomi, and I would like to speak on item 6 and general public comment.
Okay, you have 2 minutes. Go ahead.
All right. So with regards to item 6, I am strongly opposed to Councilmember Martinez's attempt to ban RVs from a set of street in her district. Criminalizing people for existing and living in an RV is inhumane. It's an ineffective way to address housing insecurity. As you know, the city and county are facing a lawsuit. We might have a consent decree from Judge Carter, and by ticketing people from parking their RVs on the street, you are further criminalizing homelessness. RV bans are a form of social cleansing, and so it's saying that people who are poor and live in RVs don't have a right to exist in our communities. And according to LASA, 71% of unhoused people have lived in LA for over 10 years. So these are native Angelenos who we are criminalizing. They are our neighbors. They have every right to live here as much as we do. So I'm going to move on to my general public comments. Ticketing people who are living in poverty doesn't make any sense. If you impound people's vehicles or tow them, that's cruel. That means that they have lost their home. You would not like it if someone came and towed your house. The best thing that you can possibly do is provide services. So trash cans, dumpsters, cleaning supplies, showers. Everyone deserves trash pickup service. It's what a functioning city provides. And the fact that you are criminalizing people for living in RVs rather than providing them services shows that Los Angeles is a failed city. It is an embarrassment to live in a city that has a Democratic supermajority, and yet our city council makes zero effort to end homelessness. Or instead, we are criminalizing people for living in RVs. Do better. You are an embarrassment. I yield my time.
Thank you. Next up, we have caller with the last four digits 6913. Please identify yourself and which items you'd like to speak on. 6913. Final call for caller last four digits 6913. Okay, moving on. Next caller, last four digits 0914. Please unmute yourself and identify yourself and which items you'd like to speak on.
Hi, my name is Caleb Crowder. I'd like to speak on items 4 and 6 in general public comment.
Okay, you have 2 minutes. Go ahead.
Great, thank you. On item number 4, I think just reading through the language and seeing how problematic some of it is, for example, talking about ways to determine compliance or ways to actually assess what a vehicle dwelling is, it's very clear that the burden of proof ends up falling on folks who are impacted, requiring them to even remain at their vehicle dwelling at all times in order to not have it assessed as an abandoned vehicle or something of that nature, I think what that type of language indicates is that we should be resorting to, or we should be going back to the original emergency-based policy that came from the mayor. We should not be citing anyone. We should not be towing anyone. We should not be doing any of that stuff during this time, booting, ticketing, all of it. I'll move on to item number 6. I know that there have been an unbelievable amount of these, a similar type of motion passing through the council. Unfortunately, many of us did not catch them in this committee before they made it to the full council. I would hope that this body, hearing all these different comments today speaking against this item, will start to reconsider their positions on this type of policy. It is inhumane. It's unnecessary. It, as someone mentioned, it ends up being a form of social cleansing in ways, because you basically are suggesting to folks that if you do not have property, if you do not have what you would define as some sort of dwelling that is typical or standard for them, that you do not have access to certain parts of the city, you're not allowed to be in public spaces, it's wrong. That should be considered criminal. So I'd really like to see you guys really shift the way that you're thinking about this type of policy. Criminalization never works. We need to be commandeering all the buildings. I'm just moving on to my general public comment. We wouldn't have to be considering motions like this or thinking about places to ban vehicles if we had enough housing for folks. If we were prioritizing housing as a right in the city, something that everyone should have access to, we'd never even been considering policy like this. I know there are a couple of you on this board that this will not resonate with. There are some of you that it will. So please stop passing things like this and start considering things that are proactive and will actually give folks housing taken care of. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the next caller is caller with the last 4 digits, 9171. Please unmute yourself.
Hi.
Yes, please identify yourself and which items you'd like to speak on.
My name is Kwame, and I'd like to speak on item number 5.
Okay, you have 1 minute. You may proceed.
Yeah, thank you for allowing me to present a petition on behalf of the taxi driver. I'm a taxi driver for the past 40 years. And COVID-19 has not been very good to us, although it's affected most people. Now, what I would like to see will be an extension, at least a year, to allow us to regroup and see what we can do. The industry has really suffered because of the Uber and the Lyft coming in and the new regulations that the board would like to see implemented. At least if we could find a way whereby the average driver can make $15 an hour, that would really be something that would be a livable wage. And then make sure that we don't have a situation whereby the drivers are exploited by way of the fines that the city is proposing, whereby they're asking for $750 a fine for a dirty vehicle or a light or something, and $2,500 fine for the headlight. That's where it doesn't make sense. Another thing that we have to understand is you should allow the companies to be licensed for a number of years, whereby they'll be able to operate. Another thing that we have to see is to have the taxis allowed to be to go back to LAX like they used to be, so that they'll be able to. Thank you for your comment.
Your time has expired.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. Next up, we have caller with the last 4 digits, 0899. Please identify yourself and which items you'd like to speak on.
Hi, this is Stacy Dawson Stearns. I would like to speak on general public comment, items 4 and 6, please.
Okay, you have 2 minutes. Please begin.
Okay, well, first of all, please ask your council members to mute themselves. It sounds like we're inside of Joey Bucket's pocket while he's working on his jump shot, okay? I don't even know what the transcript is going to look like because we can't hear shit. And I know y'all don't listen very much, but I'm going to say Mr. Buscaino and Mr. Bonin, Mr. Corrett, if you listen as well as we have proof of you listening during the city council meetings where we can actually see your faces, then I know you're not listening right now. We're all talking to ourselves. We're also going to know if you're not listening to us if you actually push through item number 6. If you continue this ridiculous, antithetical,
take that you have that criminalizing people living in their vehicles is somehow a positive thing to do in the middle of your homelessness crisis. Other callers have mentioned social cleansing. I'm going to take it all the way to social Darwinism, which I know Joe Buscaino knows. I've accused him of it before. You all are ethnic cleansing, and it's not a stretch. So I think you should take a look at yourselves. It's impossible to believe that any of you care about our unhoused neighbors if you're going to continue going district by district, patting each other on the back and giving an eye for an eye to make sure that they can criminalize people living in their cars. If you guys can't come up with a solution, then don't make more of a problem. As far as item 4 is concerned, I love how the language just drops it right out of LA Dot and puts it right into the cops. So every time a vehicle is impounded, that's money for the LAPD. So we've talked to you about this too. It's criminal. It's actually completely insane. I actually am so disillusioned with this council and with this body. Bonin, even you're doing your best, but if you all can't figure out how to actually function, I wish you all would just step down so we could get some people in here who actually know how to do your jobs better than you. I yield my time. Fuck you.
Thank you for your comments. The next caller is last 4 digits 3932. Please identify yourself and which items you'd like to speak on. Caller 3932. Yes. Please
Good afternoon.
identify yourself.
My name is Mohammed Kurastigar. I'm making general public comment on item 5.
Okay. You have 1 minute. You may begin.
Okay. I'm here on behalf of 300 owner-driver of United Independent Taxi. We respectfully request at least 6-month extension to the franchise agreement and 90 days continuance of the ordinance as submitted by the city attorney. You have heard that the ordinance is not compliant with AB 1069. But the worst is that there is no replacement permit system approved to replace the franchise agreement, and it is missing most of the protection this council has continually highlighted as important policy concern, including redlining equity. The city will no longer have authority to require service all parts of the city or ensure there is no discrimination in accepting all passengers. Traffic. The city no longer will be able to fully control where taxicab wait and will have limited enforcement capability. LAX service chaos or existing non-exclusive license agreement require taxicab companies that want to pick up passengers at LAX to be either city taxi franchisee or permitted to operate. We cannot survive without ability to serve airports. Consumer protection.
Thank you for your comment. Your time has expired. Thank you. Okay, next caller is last 4 digits 4617. Please identify yourself and which items you'd like to speak. Caller 4617. Last chance. Okay, next up, caller 1686. Please identify yourself and which items you'd like to speak on. Okay. Next up, moving on to caller 7006. Yes. Please identify yourself and which item you'd like to speak on.
Adam, just call me function, please. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Which items would you like to speak on?
All the motherfucking items in the generalized public comment portion.
Okay, you have 2 minutes. You may begin.
3 motherfucking minutes? Isn't that the way it goes? Or did Joey Buckets cut down to 2 minutes? I said general public comment and all.
Your time, Mr. Spindler.
Well, again, I don't know who. Everybody call my fucking name. I'm not some white motherfucker. That ain't my name. Now, transportation niggas of 503c4 speaking up here about these goddamn taxi routes. Now, I got my taxi. I got my contract. I paid my motherfucking fees, my bribes, and my corruption through my union. I want to be able to go up there to the LAX yard and pick up my fares. No more of this motherfucking shit. I'm not a second-class citizen. I'm a taxi driving motherfucker. Waive all my motherfucking fees and let me pick up my motherfucking people so I can make my motherfucking money for me and my niggas. I go home and I put down the bacon on the griddle. Now, what is this shit about these RVs? I thought we got that all taken care of. My nigga Judge Carter told me, quote, I will give you housing, unquote. So I say, okay. So I park my RV in front of Joey Bucket's house, and now you calling about tickets. Tickets for what? Goddamn city is looking like shit anyway. I got my pink RV with my Cuban flag on each side. And it is a beautiful sight, my RV. I want to park my RV anywhere I want and drive anywhere I want and park for free and camp. That is the American fucking way. Now, I don't know what you niggas are doing, but that's what I do. Why pay a mortgage when I can park for free and live on the streets for free? That don't make no motherfucking sense. So, I got my 3 motherfucking minutes. Now you giving me my motherfucking 2 minutes. And that ain't right. You guys ain't right. You fucked up in the head. So, I will simply say, as other speakers, I won't yield my fucking time. Fuck you.
Your time has expired.
I won't yield my time in the name of Jesus.
Next speaker.
Next speaker is last 4 digits, 8408. 8408.
Yeah, hi. I'd like to speak on 4-6 and general public comment, please.
Okay, you have 2 minutes. You may begin.
Great. Thanks very much. Yeah, starting off on number 6, I'd like to echo some of the comments of the previous callers. I think we all know that these RV banning motions are transparently about displacing people who have nowhere else to live from their communities. I know Councilmember Bonin has sort of expressed his regret for his role in popularizing this sort of a motion, and I hope he follows up on that, by voting against them, or even, taking the move to refuse to put them on the agenda as the chair of this committee. Use your power, Mike. Stop these things from moving forward. For number 4, clearly we shouldn't be impounding anything that anybody is, relying on to survive. The city shouldn't be using impounding as a way to generate revenue, period. The costs, associated with parking and those sorts of impounding things should be something that the city handles as a service and not something that's viewed as a source of revenue generation. And we really need to sort of realign, those priorities towards providing, safety and making our streets accessible, but also not creating a system that overly punishes people and is unnecessarily punitive. And with that, I will yield the rest of my time. Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller is last 4 digits, 3318. Caller 3318. Hello? Yes, your line is open. Yes. Please identify yourself and which items you'd like to speak on.
Yes, this is Richie Serdenko from People City Council. I'd like to speak on item 6 and general public comment, please.
Okay, you have 2 minutes. You may begin.
Yeah, I'm just calling in to oppose, item 6 during Martinez's motion banning RVs from a set of streets in her district. Nice to see Mike Bonin, the chair of this committee. Mike, now is the opportunity to use your power as the chair of this committee and kind of, make up for things that have happened in the past. And, we understand that criminalizing people for existing in their vehicles in certain areas is an inhumane and ineffective way to address housing insecurity. Neri's actions harm working class families of color. RVs commonly provide shelters for those families. These RV bans are a form of social cleansing, saying that poor vehicle dwellers do not have a right to exist in our communities. These are people that have been gentrified out of their homes. According to LASA, 71% of unhoused people have lived in LA for more than 10 years. They are our neighbors, and they have a right to reside in our communities without harassment or criminalization. Mike, I know you're doing a lot of great work, and so this could be an opportunity to tie things together that would, on items that you're working on in other committees and in council in general, and show to really make a point that you are an actual leader on this issue. You have come out and said a bunch of great stuff recently. Would love to see it continue, and I think you have that ability and opportunity to. On the general public comment, ticketing people who have no money makes no sense. There should be no fines associated with parking violations or towing people for people in poverty. RVs are homes. Using tickets to address issues of houselessness only further entrenches people in poverty. Last point, Joe Buckets, showing up to a meeting late. You don't really give a shit about your job, dude. There's a reason why everyone hates you. You're a piece of shit. You have really bad opinions on things, and we're going to keep showing up to your house and making noise. You are surely making yourself an enemy of the people. Your nickname is Joey Buckets because your
time has expired. Thank you for your comment.
Sending you buckets of love. Thank you. May God bless you.
Okay, next caller is last 4 digits 7186. 7186. Yes, please identify yourself and which item to speak. We can.
Yes.
Please identify yourself.
Okay, great. Yep. My name's Alex, and I'm going to be speaking on items 4, 6, and general public comment.
Okay, you have 2 minutes. You may begin.
Really quickly, Joey Buckets, you're not allowed to respond to public comment, so stop. I just want to echo what everyone else said.
Wrong.
Excuse me, I'm fucking talking. This is public comment. Is this your time to speak? This is my time to speak. Did you know that you were unmuted? Can we start it back at 2 minutes, please? Hello?
Hello? To the chair.
Start the time.
Mr. Bondman?
Give her 2 minutes, Mr. Chair. I'm good with that.
Start the time.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
I really appreciate it, as I'm a member of the public giving my public comment and would like to not be interrupted. Again, as everyone else has said, I had my car towed when I first moved to Los Angeles. It cost me $300. How do you expect someone who is barely surviving in this city during a pandemic to pay for their car being towed? This is a poor tax. You just don't like to see people who are getting criminalized. You don't want to look at them. You don't want to acknowledge that they're living in poverty in your city because you're failing. Stop criminalizing the unhoused. Let them live. As the Dalai Lama said, if you cannot help someone, do not hurt them. Why is it so hard to ask you to stop doing things that are killing people? Why are you proud of yourselves for this? This is an absolute disgrace. Let these people be. Passing this legislation where you can't park a large vehicle from 2 to 6, that is not allowing people to sleep. They have jobs. They have children. They're trying to feed themselves. They're trying to get back on their feet. But you don't want to look at them, right? You don't want to see that. You don't want to acknowledge it. Well, you go back to your homes and see your families. You don't have to worry about a traffic ticket, a fine, showing up at court when you don't have a shower. You don't have to worry about that. But these people do. They are your constituents. I'm moving on to my general public comment. Joey Buckets, it is an absolute disgrace, not only this morning while I watched you on City Council talking during general public comment, but now you are going to respond to my public comment, which you're not supposed to do. You're going to interrupt my time as a member of the public, someone who's paying my taxes to go to your salary, and you're going to comment on general public comment. Are you fucking kidding me? You are a disgrace.
Your time has expired. Thank you for your comment. Next caller, last four digits, 0985. Please identify yourself and which items you'd like to speak on.
Hi, my name is Peggy Lee Kennedy, and I'd like to speak on 146 and general public comment.
Okay, you have 2 minutes. You may begin.
First of all, the transportation department really needs to come up with a strategy that allows for poor people to park in this city, and really needs to map all these willy-nilly parking rules that have been put up: permit parking, no oversized parking, the overnight permit parking, 2 to 2 hour parking only when there's no business. If you could just map all these crazy things out, and where they don't apply, take them down. You should not have 2 hour parking where there's no businesses. You should not be restricting and removing people from parking on some place where they're not in front of a home. Those are the places where an RV or a vehicle house person actually is better off, so that they're not disturbing somebody. And, a strategy also could be to help people, and I have to tell the Transportation Committee regarding item 4 and 6, it's really sad, very sad, when really we should be doing things to help people. When you lose your housing, probably the first place you're going to live is in your vehicle. And you have put your stuff in storage in hope of finding a new home, but you can't. And maybe you've cashed in your retirement, and now you're elderly, and you're living on Social Security. Yeah, let's go after them, Transportation Committee and Department of Transportation. How evil can you be? Why don't we come up with ways to help them repair their vehicles and make it so that they can move? You've got all these failures of criminalization and harming people, when really we should be trying to help people that are falling out of housing instead of harming them. Please, I beg you to turn it around. Turn this around.
Thank you.
You don't need to harm people.
Thank you. Next caller, 4 digits, 0971. 0971. This is your opportunity to speak. Okay, moving on. Caller 6650. 6650, this is your opportunity to speak. Caller 6650.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. Good
Please
afternoon.
identify yourself and which items you'd like to speak on.
Yes, good afternoon. Item number 4, please. My
Okay,
name is
you have 1 minute.
Estella Lopez. My name is Estella Lopez. I'm the Executive Director of the Downtown Industrial District BID. I represent 500 businesses, most of them involved in food production and storage. Our entire 49 block area is under Section 8502, an area where people can legally live in their cars. So that's settled, but the reason I'm asking for your time today is so that we can express to you how desperately we need some enforcement around 8502. We have many issues with folks who live in their cars, especially in an area where food is the main industry. The illegal dumping, the human waste that is surrounding these RVs and cars is an issue, as well as a variety of criminal activities. But one of the things that we're seeing growing without enforcement is the fact that especially RVs, there seldom is an RV that is not connected illegally to the city's power grid. It can knock out an entire block's worth of city streetlights when that happens. So for the safety of not just the folks who are living in the RVs and the cars, but for the safety of the entire community, we need to have some enforcement around 8502. It can be compassionate, but we need some enforcement in
Thank you for your comments. Your time has expired. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next caller is 2759. 2759. This is your opportunity to speak.
Yes, my name is Tafik Sharif. I'm driving to United Independent Taxi Driver. My comment is that...
You have 1 minute.
Yes, for item number 5. For item number 5, the franchise system has been working for more than 40 years. Although it was anticipated that to change the system, it's very impractical to overhaul the system while we have while the taxi industries are functioning with less capacity, almost 50% less capacity due to COVID-19. My request is the franchise should be extended at least 1 year to cope up with all unexpected natural disasters that we have. Please consider my request to extend the franchise to extend for 1 year and facilitate for us to be working for more than 4 years for this business. And thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, the next caller is last 4 digits, 8878.
Hello.
8878, yes. Yes,
Hello?
please identify yourself and which items you'd like to speak on.
My name is Megan O'Heffernan, and I would like to speak on items 4, 6, and general comments.
Okay, you have 2 minutes. Please begin.
So as a number of people have said, in regards to items 4 and 6, criminalizing people for existing their vehicles is just inhumane and ineffective. I'm certainly sympathetic to the concerns of the previous caller about issues that can arise with many people living in RVs in an area, but the solution to this is for the city to step up and provide real services and places for people to go so they don't have to live in their cars. But in the meantime, criminalizing them, giving them tickets that they can't pay, and then putting them back in jail is ineffective, and it's cruel, and it's inhumane. These people are our neighbors. They live in our city, and if the city is not going to provide them with hotel rooms, with places to go that are safe in this time of COVID, because shelters are a hotbed of COVID infections, then they have to live somewhere. Putting them in jail isn't effective in the long term. It just continues the cycle of incarceration and poverty and criminal activity. So something better needs to happen. We can't just keep towing people and arresting them and destroying their homes. The city should provide actual care. It should provide services, not sweeps. It should provide sanitation for actual trash, not people's belongings, because I know that sanitation often sweeps up people's belongings when they're doing their services in areas where people are living in vehicles or tents. But as far as I'm concerned, this needs to stop. It's cruel, and it isn't fair. I yield the rest of my time.
Thank you. Okay, next caller is last 4 digits, 6913. 6913.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Please identify yourself and which items you'd like to speak on.
Item number 5, this is John O'Bagdinian, LA City Cab. I also represent Bill Rouse from CO, Yellow Cab and Checker Cab, and Simon Monesap from Bell Cab Company. Our companies were riding...
You have 1 minute. Please begin.
Okay. We are writing to express, or I'm testifying to express our concern that several provisions of the proposed ordinance in the taxi item that has been presented by the city attorney runs contrary to the plain language of the government code and therefore unenforceable. This must be corrected before this ordinance is finalized. After the passage of AB 1069, Government Code Section 53075, that was amended, now clearly reads, a permitted taxi company may provide prearranged trips anywhere within the county in which it has obtained a permit under the provisions of this section. However, in spite of this language, the provisions of the proposed ordinance at Section 7102, subsection A, B, C, and D may restrict taxi pickups to companies licensed in the city of Los Angeles. We're requesting that before this ordinance goes forward, that be redrafted by the city attorney. It has to go to the Taxi Commission, as was directed to the Taxi Commission by the City Council previously, and then also consideration be given into the extension of the taxi franchises in order to make all these corrections that are necessary. With that, thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Okay, last four digits, 8255. 8255. Yes.
Yes. Can you hear me?
We can. Please identify yourself and which items you'd like to speak on.
Yes, my name is Faramaz. I'd like to speak on items 4, 6, and general public comment.
Okay, you have 2 minutes. Please begin.
Great, thank you. I'm a resident of the San Fernando Valley in the city of Los Angeles, and I'm calling because I believe it's important to have more safe spaces for people to be able to park their cars if they have to live in their vehicle or RV. And I'm concerned about the proposal to reduce those areas, to eliminate some areas in the San Fernando Valley. So I would strongly encourage the Transportation Committee to reconsider this and to also provide, in addition to more on-street parking for people in RVs or people living in their vehicles, that we also make more off-street parking available as well, places where there can be trash cans, cleaning supplies, and trash pickup. I'm very concerned that we're just pushing people out. Many people who have been longtime residents of LA who, through no fault of their own, can't afford to make rent. And so I urge the council to take this into consideration. Thank you. And I yield the rest of my time.
Thank you. Okay, the next caller is 0971. 0971, this is your turn to speak.
You can hear me? Can you
Yes.
hear me? Thank you for giving me this opportunity. The ordinance, let me identify myself. My name is Joseph, calling on behalf of United Independent Taxi. So the ordinance trying to pass into the taxi company, which is it is irrelevant because I don't know if it is the importance of the fines that do from $600 to $6,000. I don't know if it is a political statement or a financial statement. That need to be clear. Secondly, we need to extend not for 1 year. We need to extend until the end of the pandemic. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you.
Done. Thank you.
Okay. The next caller is 1686. Please identify yourself and which items you'd like to speak on.
Okay. My name is Johannes Mersha. I would like to speak about agenda number 5 and general public comment.
Okay, you have 2 minutes. Please begin.
All right, sir. Thank you, sir. The thing that I would like to talk today is, especially right now, the taxi commissioners are discussing and debating, to finalize the new permitting operating law. Without, before they finish that thing, right now, if you guys are trying to amend the ordinance, it doesn't make any sense to me. There are a lot of drivers who have been working for 20, 25 years, and the only income that they have is driving taxi. The new rule that is you guys are proposing is it will completely destroy the taxi industry as we know it. Because for the simple, violation, as you guys know, the driving in Los Angeles, there is a lot of, the streets with the pothole and everything. A car that have a good headlight, if you go to that pothole and, all of a sudden you light bulb is burned, and then all of a sudden you'll be, to penalize $750 to God knows what. This kind of things, if you guys are, trying to protect the public and trying to protect, also the taxi industry, it should be reasonable. We are not saying that, any person who is violating the rule should not be penalized, but it should be reasonable, not to put the taxi industry out of business. What we're seeing right now is that. And, give the taxi commissioner to finish their job, then at least, you should extend it, minimum 6 months up to 1 year. Then let's have a discussion with the taxi commissioner, and we'll move forward. Otherwise, you guys want us to be like Uber and Lyft, like the Tennessee company. But who is regulating
Your time has
them?
expired. Thank you. Okay. Next caller is last 4 digits, 4617. 4617. One more chance, 4617. Okay. Moving on. Next, last 4, 4024. 4024? Yes.
Am I there?
You
Who
are.
are you?
Please identify yourself and which item would you like to speak on?
I would like to speak on items 1, items 4, 5, 6, and general public comment.
Okay, you have 2 minutes. Please begin.
Is this the transportation department? For the record, for the record, who's the fool that's the attorney sitting in right now?
Please begin your public comment.
Mr. Herman, begin your public comments now, or we're going to end your public comments.
Well, I'm against RV and people being told they can't sleep in their vehicle when they're homeless, especially veterans. And you've been discriminating against them, Joey Bucket, for a long time. So shut up. I got the floor. And so going back to this issue, right, I'm trying to advise you that people have the dignity and right to sleep in their vehicle when they're homeless, not be pushed around by Joey the Bucket. And at the same time, we're in a crisis. Although Mommy Barger just said, no, we're opening up the museums for sales only. Well, how can I go to the museum if you don't allow me? Right? And I try to park. Joey the Bucket, I suffer from autism. Why don't you let me speak? Huh? I'm going to go to my general public comment, you racist pig. Now, Mr. Oink Oink, Joey the Bucket. Nobody seems to like you, Joey. You stupid Italian silver-tongued cop.
Okay, Herman, you're off topic and you're done for the day.
No,
Next
you're a fool. All of it.
Next speaker, caller 1429. 1429. Caller 1429. Last chance. Okay, moving on. Caller 5300. 5300. Okay, moving on. Caller 0971.
Hello?
Yes. Hi, please
Yes.
identify yourself and which items you'd like to speak on.
Yes, my name is Jessica Hernandez, and I'm a taxi driver from LA. I've been driving for 8 years already. And I would like to see an extension of the existing franchise agreement. And I will not like to you guys eliminate the franchise. And I want to be involved directly to the new regulations. And I want to be I would like to the cabs continue on the LA terminal courts and LAX. And thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Okay, we have a couple of speakers with no caller ID, so I will ask you to unmute and please identify yourself.
Yeah, hi. Can I speak on items 4, 6, and general public comment, please?
Yes, you have 2 minutes. Please begin.
Okay. This report from Department of Transportation is just like technocratic ghoulery. Why are we coming up with complex ways to punish and torture people who are living in vehicles on the streets? I mean, come on. How do you guys try and justify this? We have horrible conditions right now. These people are in a situation where they're just trying to hang in there. And you guys are trying to figure out what's the way to tow them, which is all a racket for revenue for the city anyway. We shouldn't be doing towing or impounding any vehicles ever, but especially not right now. Item number 6, these piecemeal bans are terrible. They're terrible, and you guys are just including more and more streets. Where are these people supposed to go? They don't have anywhere to go. Councilmember Bonin, I am begging you, appealing to you, to listen to the people who have called in today, like you did about the neighborhood council bias training, and stop this practice. You were the one who popularized it, so I am urging you to put a stop to this right now. Every single council meeting, there's more and more of these motions. And previous callers have said it. It is cleansing of neighborhoods. Stop it now. Kill this in committee. Do not pass this. These need to end. And general public comment, I don't know how Joey Buckets gets on every single committee that has to deal with issues like we've already talked about RV bans and impoundment, issues that are basically poverty issues. He intentionally seemed to get on these committees so he can continue to punish poverty. And, when all you have is shit, everything looks like a bucket. And he shouldn't be interrupting public comment or responding to public comment. Just control yourself, Buckets. Try to control your anger and rage at people calling you out for being awful. Councilmember Bonin, I urge you once more, please stop these bans.
Thank you for your call.
Thank you.
Peace be with you.
Okay, there's another caller with no caller ID. I'm going to unmute you. Please identify yourself.
Hi, I'd like to speak on item 6 and general public comment.
Okay, you have 2 minutes. Please begin.
Thank you. Item 6 is very disappointing and disheartening because it's a copy and paste of the same fucking ordinance that you guys do every single time, which shows just how little you care about this city or about what goes through this council. To not even request any sort of, I mean, you guys are really good at report backs, but you guys won't report back on why this stretch of street is being considered for this because you guys just don't care. It's beyond disappointing. It just goes to show how much you guys have abdicated your duty. I mean, you guys probably aren't even listening. You guys are always on your phones. You guys were on your phones last week when the youth were calling in for a youth development department that they've been waiting for 7 years. You guys are beyond disrespectful to the people working for you who handle these calls every single day, and you guys don't care. You guys don't pay attention. You guys disrespect your entire staff. You allow them to get furloughed instead of moving to allow them to continue the vital work that they do in the city, instead just allowing more and more criminalization to come through, like this ordinance on item 6. Beyond disappointing, disgusting, and disgraceful that all you guys can do through these committees is either giveaways to developers or criminalization of the poor. And so you turn this fucking city into a playground for the rich and an open-air jail for the rest of us. Beyond disgraceful. Mike Bonin, you should repent for your sins by not allowing bullshit like item 6 to go through. Joey Buckets, you are a disgrace to the city, a disgrace to the town, everywhere. No peace be with you. No sarcastic bullshit response for you. Just know that you are a bucket of shit, an irredeemable piece of shit, and that's all you'll ever be.
Thank you. Okay, the next caller is also with no caller ID. I'm going to unmute you, and please identify yourself.
Joey Buckets is a pile of shit. You I fucking die. Dumpster fucking close. Joey Buckets. Said shit.
Okay, that is Mr. Spindler again. He's already called in. Please disconnect the line.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Bruins, how many people are on the queue right now?
There are 3 more callers in the queue.
Okay, so we'll do those 3 calls. It's past 4, so that will be anybody who called in at the beginning of the meeting or for the first hour of the meeting. And after those 3, we'll go through the agenda.
Okay, we have caller with the last 4 digits of 4617. Okay, moving on. Caller with the last 4 digits, 8935.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Good afternoon.
Please identify
Michelle
yourself
Kinman.
and which items you'd like to speak on. Okay.
Sure. This is Michelle Kinman with the Los Angeles Clean Tech Incubator to speak on item number.
Okay, you have 1 minute. Go ahead.
Thank you. On behalf of the Los Angeles Clean Tech Incubator, I'm pleased to offer strong support for item number 2. In close collaboration with the City of Los Angeles, Lacey has convened the Transportation Electrification Partnership, which is an unprecedented public-private partnership focused on accelerating climate and air pollution by the time of the 2028 Olympic Games by pursuing bold targets, pilots, and policies. One of those bold targets that we've set is for 60% of all medium-duty delivery trucks in the county to be electric by 2028. And achieving this goal will require a suite of innovative policies and pilots, including curb management pilots. And that's why we're so excited to be launching a voluntary zero emissions delivery zone pilot with curb management elements in Santa Monica later this month. And we look forward to continue working with Councilmember De Leon and CD14, where Lacey is based, and with the full council and Mayor Garcetti to bring more electric vehicles and active transit options for goods movement to downtown LA and other parts of the city. And so for all of these reasons that we are eager to support this motion, the City of Los Angeles has an important opportunity to lead the way by passing this motion and exploring the feasibility of a program that designates commercial loading zones for zero-emission vehicles. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, final caller is last 4 digits, 9836. 9836. This is your opportunity to speak.
Hi, my name is Jordan. I am calling to speak on item 4 and then a general public comment.
Okay, you have 2 minutes. You may begin.
Yeah, so I was looking at the report back, and one of the things that's really concerning to me is that we're just still doing a lot of parking enforcement in general while we're supposedly supposed to be sheltering in place, despite so many things being open. It doesn't seem to match up with, like, our goals. Like, we have the FEMA money, but you guys didn't put the motion that should have been on the agenda today to, like, actually give these people somewhere to go. So you're wanting to take these vehicles when we're not, like, do you guys just not care about COVID? Like, I'm a little confused by that. And also why LAPD is going to be the enforcement on there. Like, this just seems like you're putting the cart before the horse, and you're not really actually giving the homeless services that you're saying are supposed to go out to there first the resources they need to do the job before you're going to just say, hey, this hasn't worked, we're going to pass the buck. Like, it's not right. And then for general public comment, you guys really need to do this street sweeping stuff is ridiculous. I've had people I know have had their cars towed when they literally can't afford anything because they're still not working because of COVID and they're not getting their EDD payments. Like, you guys, like, we're still in a pandemic. Like, we should be easing things and making life easier for people. And when they're already still struggling, this is just ridiculous. And also, Jobuska, you know, like, don't be on a fucking conversation when you only have, like, 30 minutes of public comment during the main city council sessions. Like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Your job is so easy. You phone it in so much. Like, quit being such a dope. I yield my time. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes public comment.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Bruins, and thank you, everybody, for calling in. Why don't we jump straight to item number 4?
Item number 4 is an LADOT report relative to the parking enforcement policy for vehicles used as bonds.
Okay, and who from DOT is going to be reporting on this?
Hi, good afternoon. Brian Hill, Chief of Parking Enforcement.
Thank you very much for speaking. Is anybody else speaking on it, or is it just the enforcement arm?
I believe at this point it'd just be the enforcement.
Okay.
Hello, Councilman Member Bonin. Commander Rimkunis from the Office of Operations. I'm sitting in for Chief Grimala today. And I know DOT is here to talk about their policy, but we did have some questions and maybe some concerns, but I'll wait till after if those aren't addressed in this presentation.
Okay. We'll see how the presentation goes. Usually it's the members of the committee who ask the questions, but we'll see how things go. Is there anybody here who helped? Who from DOT wrote the report?
Well, the report was written.
Look, Constant with LADOT, and I helped write the report.
Okay, cool. I just want to make sure that I got all the different folks engaged on it. So I want to sort of go back to last fall where this sort of started. Well, go back even sooner. At the beginning of the pandemic last year, the city basically suspended parking enforcement because people were staying at home. Last October, the city council voted to start resumption of parking enforcement and impounds when applicable for street cleaning, abandoned vehicles, other parking restrictions, peak hour and anti-gridlock zones, and expired registration. That was in October. The council also voted to resume enforcement of expired preferential parking district permits and suspended imposing new citation late penalties until further in October. I just want to be clear about what we're discussing today and what we're not discussing, because that was the action that is not before us today. That was an action that was taken last fall. As part of that direction, and that came out of this committee, was to not enforce impounds of vehicles that violated the oversized vehicle ordinances and report. Back then it said in 30 or 60 days with the next step plan. And much more than 30 or 60 days later, this is the next step plan. Is that correct?
Yes, this report, though, speaks more specifically, though, to the vehicle dwellings and the enforcement with respect or impoundment of vehicles.
The direction from this committee and the council was to not impound any vehicle that was being used as a dwelling, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. The report has been confusing to a lot of different people, me included. Does this report continue that prohibition on DOT doing impounding of vehicles which people are using for living?
So we were instructed not to impound vehicle dwellings, and we've continued with that instruction, and so we are not impounding vehicle dwellings.
Okay. And the way things generally worked is LADOT, prior to the pandemic, would either impound vehicles or LAPD would do so?
Yeah, prior 8502 addressed the enforcement for vehicle dwellings within LAPD, and for any vehicle that was occupied even prior to 8502, the DOT officers worked in conjunction with LAPD. If the vehicle was occupied, that fell within LAPD's authority.
Okay, so under the old system, 8502 was in place. 8502 is no longer in place.
Right.
That has sunsetted. So it is no longer illegal for someone to be living in their vehicle. What the ordinance or what the policies in question refer to is what happens when vehicles are otherwise in violation of parking restrictions, peak hour gridlock stuff, and someone is using the vehicle for lodging. This continued LADOT's lack of engagement with a policy of impounding, right?
I'm not sure I understand the question, Councilman, so you can perhaps rephrase that.
It used to be that LAPD or LADOT would impound vehicles. Under this, LADOT is staying involved in impounding of vehicles or getting out of the business of impounding vehicles that people live in?
We are not in the business of impounding vehicle dwellings, vehicles that people live in. Prior to, we were not involved in that as well. We impound other types of vehicles, but not vehicle dwellings, if I understand you correctly.
Okay. Mr. Kretz or Mr. Buscaino?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, Chief Hale, my understanding pre-COVID that if there was an abandoned vehicle, you mark the tire, 72 hours, at which point then the vehicle would be impounded, correct?
That's correct. That is occurring today. We are impounding abandoned vehicles.
That's still happening today.
That are unoccupied, abandoned vehicles.
So, Chief Hale, based on the report from DOT, constituent calls, business calls, puts a report in, I have an abandoned vehicle in front of my residence or in front of my business. DOT arrives, recognizes in the impound investigation that there's a sleeping bag, there's personal belongings, at which point DOT officers will pull out and not impound the vehicle. Is that my understanding?
That is correct.
Even if it's beyond the 72 hours?
Yeah, if there's evidence of vehicle dwelling that someone is using it as their home, items such as bedding, food preparation, variety of evidence in terms of someone who's living there. That information is conveyed to the Unified Homeless Resource Center, UHRC, and/or we're working with our partners at LASA and the HOPE team.
Okay, so if in the case where there is an individual in this abandoned vehicle that's now a dwelling, does DOT stand by and wait for a LASA representative to arrive, or do they just clear the scene?
They clear the scene and a report is made, as I indicated, to the UHRC of our finding.
They just notify it, then they just clear the scene. Knowing that an individual is living in a car that needs resources. Is that my understanding? The DOT officer clears the scene?
That is correct. We provide information to the UHRC, who has staff specifically assigned to address homelessness issues and counseling. We don't have the resources or training other than just providing the occupants of the vehicle with some handout material, and that has certainly been done and
okay,
could be done.
Provide them with resources. That's fair.
Yeah.
Commander Rimkonis, who's here, thank you for joining us.
Yes, sir.
What's the department's take on the report that's before us from LADOT? What sort of coordination typically takes place when there's a vehicle that's being assessed for impound?
So, sir, with the report, the reason I'm on is just and Chief Moore, in his review of this, I believe there's further discussions that need to be had between DOT and the LAPD, specifically to items 4 and items 5 within the report.
Just for the record, item 4 for those listeners who are dialed in. Item 4 is inform Unified Homelessness Response Center, UHRC, and item 5 is impounding a vehicle. Once appropriate homeless services agencies are notified of a vehicle dwelling, LADOT is no longer involved in the vehicle assessment or potential impound. That's what you're referring to, sir?
Yes, sir. And I should have read that. I apologize.
That's fine. No, that's fine.
So, in the review of this, we do believe there's further discussion because we're under the belief, with the reconfiguration of the LAPD, the alternate dispatch, where we're assigning other entities to respond to these, it's our belief that DOT can stand by. If we're calling UHRC, we're trying to get resources, etc., we don't have the resources to respond, to stand by and take over as it states in this report. So we're asking that needs to be discussed a little bit further between, the chief or our chief, just to go about the protocols in place. If this is going to be the policy, then we're asking for a little bit more discussion on what the exact requirements are and what the responsibilities would be for LAPD if needed. In our belief, LAPD responds if there's a safety concern, in this arena to assist DOT as we would with sanitation. When we have sanitation cleanup, sanitation has radios, we are no longer in the business of standing by, unless there is some immediate safety concern, and that pertains to item 4. So all we're asking for is further discussion to get into that a little bit more so it can be better explained. In item number, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead, Commander. I'm sorry.
No. In item 5 on the impound, homeless services notified, then DOT is no longer involved. We don't believe that is, that should be occurring. And our question, without going through the report, this is why I'm asking for a further meeting, is how come DOT cannot stand by if services are coming out to provide whatever the needs are for the individuals in the dwelling? Why would that be then turned over to the police department if there's no safety concern? So, that's our sort of response and why I'm here, just to ask for further discussions with the Department of Transportation to enhance the report and just make sure that, the committee has everything lined up.
Commander, I mean, you don't need to advocate for me. You don't know how many times as a senior lead officer I wish I had next to me in the roll call room a DOT officer. The two departments work in silos, so I totally understand where you're coming from. I hope, one day the city can agree to have LADOT under the command of LAPD. So we have more coordination and more communication, very similar to what you're advocating for now, in which I agree. Chief Hale, so Commander, how much more time is the police department asking for?
I believe a few weeks at least. So, it's the response, so Chief Moore would like to speak with the GM of DOT, the chief, to iron out, because, as we're reading this report, we're finding LAPD responsibilities that we're not fully aware of what the requests are. So in response to that, we would, again, I don't want to speak for the chief, but if we were given a few more weeks to conduct further meetings with DOT, I think we can iron out some of the things that the policy is stating in the report.
Okay, there'll be the discretion of the chair, which I would support, Mr. Bonin, if we need to continue this for a couple of weeks so that both general managers can communicate, unless I see saluted Ms. Reynolds is here, unless that's already taken place.
Yeah, let me chime in if I might on that, Mr. Buscaino. Thank you for the line of questioning.
I have a couple more, but go ahead, sir.
Yeah, what I'm hearing here is there's a lot of confusion about the report, about what the current practice is, what the projected practice is, who's responsible for what. What I think I am hearing a lot of unanimity about from both the bulk of our callers and from LAPD is that LAPD should not be involved in this, and that's good. I am also hearing a lot of concern about whether or not there are sufficient resources to offer people who are living in their vehicles. There are not. We will be discussing in council tomorrow policies to streamline creation of safe parking. But one of the concerns I also have is for people who are living in their vehicles who wind up getting fined, do we have enough resources available to help people with those fines? And if someone is living in their vehicle and their car breaks down and they are in an anti-gridlock zone, they're still going to get towed and they're still going to lose their home. I mean, we can't have vehicles, blocking traffic in the city of Los Angeles, but we need to find a way to help people keep their homes, and that's something we probably need to address. So for a couple of different reasons, I think it would be better for us to defer this item to a later meeting. I think it's fine for LAPD and LADOT to have additional conversations about roles and responsibilities. But I also think it's pretty important for the department to engage with LASA and for us to see before this comes back whether or not there is a program or there's a resource that we can tap into that can help people whose cars are broken down or RVs are broken down when they're blocking an anti-gridlock zone. So that they don't wind up losing their home and wind up out on the street. So I'd be supportive of the continuance and would recommend that.
Thank you for that. If I can, Mr. Chair, a couple more questions. I mean, when we talk about fairness and resources, I feel that the city of LA is putting forth a lot of resources from our parking enforcement officers, from LAPD, when in fact 43 cities in LA County completely ban RV parking. 43 other cities. And here we are monitoring these calls from advocates. They should be calling the 43 cities who aren't doing actually anything. They've actually completely banned RV parking, but I hear crickets. Just anyhow. Sorry to go on a tangent there, but to Chief Hale, tell me about how the department would handle a vehicle that's creating a threat to public health. For example, an RV that's dumping buckets of feces and urine of human waste, or who would you contact, and what steps would be taken?
Well, we'd contact Department of Sanitation. We work closely with representatives there at Sanitation to mitigate some of the hazards we're encountering now with the RVs or the burned out vehicles, abandoned vehicles we find on the street. Before they can be moved, they have to have the hazardous materials mitigated. And so we work closely with Sanitation to address those issues. You're muted, sir.
Sorry, my daughter's making some noise. So the same question for public safety. Now, we know, colleagues, that there are folks who are clearly using their vehicle because of circumstances, whether it's COVID, out of work, and yes, maybe they couldn't afford rent. And then you have others who are using vehicles and RVs, dangerous activity that's happening inside these vehicles, such as prostitution rings, there's hoarding, there's drug use, drug sales, meth labs that we've seen in my district. And just wanted to say, if LADOT comes across a vehicle that poses a public safety, public health situation, how would LADOT handle something like that?
Well, there's the
case over to LAPD.
We work closely with LAPD and specifically the senior lead officers to identify and support, say, a situation where we want to issue a citation for overnight parking district or things of this nature. And so we would not approach, we don't deal with individuals that closely. We cite and enforce violations against cars and not people, as you know. And so if there were a risk associated with the engagement, we would contact LAPD.
But will there still be impound authority in the event there'd be a dangerous activity attached to a vehicle?
Yeah, the ordinance provides either agency could impound a vehicle.
If there's a risk of public health, public safety.
Well, if it's a risk of health and public safety, I think that's, as I had stated earlier, that should be within the LAPD's purview.
Okay, and Commander, you're saying you need some time to kind of hash this through, right? Find a way to coordinate these efforts with LADOT.
Yes, sir. As Chief Hale mentioned, if there was a safety concern, as you mentioned in your description, then obviously we do work in partnership with the DOT. I just think based on the way the report, the policy is stated, there's some things that we need to have further discussions on in response to if there isn't a safety concern. If you have someone that needs assistance and resources, et cetera, is that something DOT can handle on their own? If it reaches the level of some crime or criminal activity and safety to the general community and to everyone involved, then of course LAPD will stand right by the side of DOT and enforce, and then still continue with resources. And when you're talking about a vehicle that has hazardous materials, there's a whole protocol in place that requires folks, Safe LA or Safe Harbors to come out and assess the vehicle and evaluate and give the thumbs up that a vehicle can be towed. But there's a whole step process that will go into that because of the hazmat. But safety, always LAPD responds. It's the other issues that where it doesn't quite meet the criteria for safety. We just need to hash that out and make sure that within their policy it spells that, because right now we're not really seeing that at this point.
Okay, gentlemen, I'm sorry, I need to interrupt here. It's 4:30. I think it's pretty clear we're going to be continuing this item. I want to let Mr. Corrett say something if he wants to say something. But we are going to continue this item with the instruction that the departments talk more and that there also be consultation with LASA and with unhoused members of the unhoused community and their representatives about this policy before it comes back.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm good. I'm done, and looking forward to opening my 2 safe parking sites in my district, so we have a safe place to go while we're building out our housing. Thank you, sir.
Okay, Mr. Kretz, you can try to be quick because we still got this whole big taxi item coming up.
I agree, so I'm not going to raise any new issues. I'll just point out that safe parking is as difficult as everything else. And one of the sites I was about to open got so much opposition that I'm not 100% sure the site owner will continue with the process. It's just difficult as everything else is with homelessness. But we keep trying to open sites in good faith and look forward to continuing to look for more sites in my district.
Okay, all right. So thank you. So we will continue item 2 to a date to be determined with the instruction. I'm sorry, item number 4. I'm sorry. With the instruction that the departments talk to each other, that we that there be consultation with the unhoused community and the representatives, as well as with LASA and UHRC, and that we consider as part of a report back whether or not the city can identify resources to help people whose vehicles have been broken down to not be towed or impounded. Also, we are going to continue until our next meeting, the GM's report, LA DOT strategic plan. Thank you, Ms. Reynolds, for understanding that a PowerPoint probably was not the most thing we'd be most receptive to at the moment. Thank you. And let us go now to item number 5.
Item number 5 is a city attorney report and ordinance amending Article 1, Chapter 7 of the Los Angeles Municipal Code to replace the city's existing taxicab franchise regulatory framework with an open market permitting system.
Okay, who's going to be reporting on this? Is it Jarvis?
Yes. Thank you, Councilman Ron, and I will be the one reporting on this.
Okay, please go ahead.
All right. Thank you all for taking this item up once again. We are back here with the taxi issues. I just want to remind the group and the audience that of the history of the franchises here. The current franchises we are under have been in place since 2010, and they were meant to expire in 2015, and we gave them an extension until 2017. I joined the city in late 2016. There was another extension in 2019. Up until 2019, we issued a report related to taxi work, taxi service in the city of Los Angeles. We came back to this committee with recommendations to move to a permitting system, and this committee in October of 2019 approved us moving to a permitting system and working with DOT and Commission, our Taxicab Commission, to develop those rules and regulations. Since then, we've extended through the end of 2020, and now we're here at the end, or we extended till June of 2020, and now we're here at the end of February. The current franchise has been here for about 11 years, and we are now in a place where we think we are ready to move forward. And that's what we've been doing. So over the last few months, we've been working closely with the commission and with the industry to develop the rules and regulations related to taxicab service here in the city. And one of the things that we've tried to do is maintain the set of rules that currently exist, for easy transition for our incumbent players, as well as add new things that move them over into the future. And what this ordinance is asking us to do at this stage, it's an enabling ordinance that allows us, or allows the committee, to say, go forth and begin your permitting system. And that's what we are here ready to do. Many of the callers, the comments related to the minutia of the rules. We are not there yet, and the commission, as one caller mentioned, has not voted on any of the rules. We've discussed a lot of the rules, and the reason there is a lot to talk about is because we've been sharing the rules as we go, to the point where now we've re-edited the rules, taking in a lot of the feedback and giving it back to the industry for more comment and discussion. So there seems to be some confusion that this ordinance is here to establish all of the rules. There seems to be confusion that once this ordinance passes, once we move to an open permitting system, that everything suddenly disappears, all drivers stop working, everyone stops working, companies disappear, and that's not what will happen. Once we move to a permitting system, we will continue to work with the commission to refine and adjust and reform these regulations to meet what is the future of the industry. And one of the reasons we want to be able to do this is because currently under the franchise system, we have very little flexibility to make changes. And as a matter of fact, one of the continuous complaints at the commission, as the commission discusses these rules, we often hear, well, you don't have the authority to make these changes. That's only council because we're under the franchise. So right now we're in this position where if the commission wants to discuss or make changes to the rules that either contradict or exceed the current franchise, someone blocks them based on process and says, well, council has to say that that's okay. We are now in a place where we are ready to begin making those moves. And this, again, this enabling ordinance does not move us, doesn't make all the rules. We are still here to work with them. We are still here to continue and continue and continue. But now under a permitting system, we will have the flexibility to adjust levers, to adjust movement, to make changes as we go. So even if we put rules in place at this stage and we determine a year from now they are not meeting our equity goals or things that we think are important, we will have the authority and the wherewithal to be able to make those changes. And I think, once again, the last thing I kind of want to say about this is that as much as it is a big deal that we're moving away from the franchise system, it operationally doesn't change how they do their work at this stage of the game. We are looking for long-term changes. We're looking for long-term sustainability for the industry. But at this stage, you know, at most, the commission, we expect to absolutely, you know, grandfather in many of the current permittees who are already there. Driver permits, vehicle permits are already a part of the LAMC, and they're not a part of the franchise necessarily. And so we are able to do things and move things forward. And we think that by moving forward with this enabling ordinance and allowing the commission to continue that work, we'll be able to start making all the changes, moving all the levers necessary to really make taxis a viable option. Because right now, what they are missing, and as much as everyone keeps saying that let's just leave it alone for now, let's just leave it alone for now, I don't think anyone here believes that the current franchise system has worked for the industry. And right now, the average person, you know, ages 18 to 49, is not considering a taxi cab for use. And that's something that I think we need to be able to change. And that's something that we think we can change once we get to a permitting system that allows us to begin making these adjustments.
Thanks for that summary, Jarvis. I appreciate it. You've been doing very difficult, very challenging work for a very, very long time on this, and it's been an issue that has been festering for a very long time in the city of Los Angeles. And I will concede something, and then I will contradict myself immediately afterwards. I concede that it's frustrating and intolerable that we keep sort of delaying this action. We delayed it several months ago. Mr. Kretz and I differed on how long to delay it, and then we came up with a compromise term and said, okay, this is as far as we're going to delay it. And so part of me really just wants to sort of rip the Band-Aid off and move forward on this. On the other hand, I think there's a few things that we need to acknowledge and that we need to recognize. One, the council gave its instruction to move towards this system in 2019. And the world has changed a great deal since 2019. In 2019, I think it was the sentiment of the council that we should move forward on this, and that part of the allure of it, part of the sell of this, was to help taxis become more like TNCs, because we saw them as taking up more market share, and we wanted to make sure that taxis got a greater piece of the action. And we also saw that customers by and large, at least the ones we hear from, generally prefer the ride share to the taxi. That was becoming an increasing thing, although there's certainly equity considerations about where the TNCs operate and whether or not they provide for people with disabilities and the background checks on riders. But that was sort of I think, a policy direction that the council was giving, is we wanted a system that would more emulate the TNCs. But there's a missing piece of that equation, and Victor Naro from the UCLA Labor Center sent us all, and it's in the council file, a letter yesterday addressing this, which is really what's best for the workers. Victor's letter, and he's a very smart and thorough scholar, warns that we may wind up under these new rules with a race to the bottom in terms of salaries. And Professor Naro warns that as the city hits its $15 minimum wage goal, we could effectively be having taxi drivers with making less than that. So I think we need to be very sensitive to that, and I personally need to see a little more information on that in particular. The other thing is the question of specifics. This is a little bit of a chicken or an egg thing, where the commission can't act until the council tells them to do so. And I know the council pretty well. The council ain't going to dive into this and say yes on this ordinance when the specifics are to be left to the taxi commission. And so I do want to open up the discussion, but I just want to preview sort of what I'm thinking on this as a way forward. Is I think a year-long extension is intolerable, but I would be willing to entertain a 6-month one with the specific request from the city council to the taxi commission to come up with the specific rules. So that it's not this game of football where they say, no, we can't do it because the council hasn't acted yet. It's a request from the council to come up with these specific rules so we consider these together with the ordinance. My request would be that they do that within 90 days, and then that this committee has an opportunity to have more than one hearing. One on the specific operational changes, and the other specifically focused on the conditions of and the income impacts for drivers. That's sort of where I am in my head now, but I'm eager to hear where my colleagues are, and I'll.
Mr. Bond, if that's a motion, I'll second it.
Okay. Thank you, Mr.
And I'll third it.
Okay. All right. All right. Well, that was a hell of a lot easier than I thought it was going to be. All right. So with that, Jarvis, do you have any questions on that, or can we go to a vote? Is that clear?
Yeah, I think it's clear, and I think what we're being asked is to, it sounds like you're asking the commission actually to come up with a certain base level of rules, but I'm not particularly sure how deep does that go in terms of what types of rules you're expecting.
Well, we were being asked to do an enabling ordinance, and then they were going to come up with all the details. What I'm saying is, provide us the details before we do the enabling ordinance, and then the enabling ordinance will either effectuate those details or say these need to be modified.
Okay.
All right. Mr. Clerk, why don't we do the roll?
I think Mr. Corrett's had his hand up, Mr. Chair.
Oh, sorry, Mr. Corrett, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'm in 100% in agreement and pleasantly surprised. I was going to suggest pretty much the same thing, that we take some time and do this right. I think you hit one of my objections right on the head, that I think we really want to know the details first. I don't think I would vote for this ordinance if I thought we weren't handling the details properly. And there are a number of concerns I have, especially since I'd say our handling of this via versus TNCs has put the industry to a point where some companies are still hanging on by a thread and others are no longer. And so I certainly want to know the policies. I think the area that might concern me the most, although there are several, is that we're looking at expanding the number of cabs and companies. And right now, and even before COVID, but especially now, there are taxi drivers that will say, you know, I've had one ride in the whole day, and that's just not sustainable. Nobody's really making any money now. And if we say, oh, let's add hundreds of more cabs, if we're unfortunate enough that hundreds of more cabs want to join us, there's no chance that we survive that. It has to be done in a very delicate and methodical way, if at all. So that issue has to be dealt with carefully. There's also a question of whether this ordinance is written fully in compliance with AB 1069. There are certainly folks that would debate both sides of that. I think that's a debate that should be had. The taxi industry has expressed other concerns, which I think they need the time to have discussed. And I think we all would like to have the commission weigh in both on what they think of the ordinance, even if they're not the decision makers, and what their rules are going to be, so we can have feedback back and forth, and the taxi drivers and the taxi companies and all stakeholders, we can try to get to where I think a fair place would be. Clearly, what the situation is now isn't working for the cab companies, but if we handle this less than perfectly, we could make it worse rather than better. So I appreciate everything that you've suggested, Mr. Bonin. I mean, there are other things. There are penalties that I think seem too high for maintenance flaws that I'm sure TNCs are not held to. I'm trying to think of what else. I mean, there are a number of problems, but I'd rather give us the time to address them and come up with the right way to do this and be sure before we vote on it that that's happening. So I'm 100% in agreement with your motion, and I thank you for your willingness to do that.
Sure. And I'd suggest if any of us have specific issues or concerns we want addressed is that we get them to Jarvis and to DOT staff and to the commission now, so that we're not revisiting this and having last minute questions again at the next benchmark. So Mr. Nagel, let me ask you, because you look like you're about to bounce out of your seat and answer me before I ask, what is the way to do this? Does the committee report need to simply say extend by 6 months, or does it need to direct city attorney and DOT to prepare something to extend for 6 months?
I think we have to prepare something, because if we're going to keep on with the franchises, we do have to extend them because they do expire on the 28th. So it's just a question of going into the office and amending the previous one we did to move forward that date for 6 months.
All right, so I'll be a little more precise with my recommendation. It would be one, to direct the city attorney and Department of Transportation to prepare for council approval an extension of the existing franchise agreement for 6 months. Two, it would be for the city council to request that the Taxicab Commission work with DOT staff and come up with the specific rules and guidelines for how the new system would work. And three would be to request appropriate staff and to do so within 90 days. Let us know if that's a problem. And three, prior to the expiration of the 6 month extension, with the cooperation of this committee and my office, do two separate meetings, one on the operational rules and one on concerns specific to workers.
I second that. Yep.
Okay. All right. Let's call the roll.
Thank you for that, Mr. Bonin. Committee members, I'll take a roll call vote. Mr. Bonin.
Aye.
Mr. Koretz.
Aye.
Mr. Buscaino.
Aye.
The recommended action passes.
Thank you. Okay, we have continued items 1 and 4. We have approved items 5. Colleagues, does anybody have any questions on 2, 3, and 6? Or do we have a motion on those items?
Move to approve all 3 items.
Second.
Okay. Let's call the roll, please.
Council members, the action is to recommend approval for items 2, 3, and 6.
You're muted, Mr. Clark.
The recommended action is to approve items 2, 3, and 6. Mr. Bonin.
Yeah.
Mr. Koretz.
Aye.
Mr. Buscaino.
Aye.
The matters are approved.
Okay. Thank you very much. Does that clear the desk?
Yes, it does, sir.
All right. Thank you, everybody. We are adjourned.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Goodbye.